Mm. Hi. So we'll start in about a minute. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Avanti Pandit, graphics head, Scio Foundation Manipal, on behalf of my team, welcome you to Transgender Healthcare, an event under Consequently. We are glad to have you all here today. 12th December is Universal Health Coverage Day and is promoted by the WHO. It aims to raise awareness about the of different forms of healthcare and how to increase reach, affordability, and accessibility. Scio Foundation Manipal is proud to present to you Conscientia, a week-long awareness program from 6 to 12 December, which where each day will be covering crucial aspects of healthcare. And today we plan on holding transgender healthcare, an event that aims at spreading awareness about the accessibility and availability of transgender healthcare for the members of the community, which is an important aspect when it comes to healthcare and is often neglected. Healthcare is a basic right and should be available to all, which hasn't been very easy for the community in the past, with the kind of stigmatization and discrimination that the community has to face. Transgender healthcare services are the need of the hour. Hence, to initiate the conversation around transgender healthcare, we have decided to come up with an event that would where we would be talking about the basics of health, facts that everybody should. And this event would not have been possible without our speaker for the day, Dr. Aksa Sheikh, our um, collaborating organization, Human Solidarity Foundation, and our primary media partner, MTV. Before we begin, I humbly request you all to keep your cameras and mics off for the duration of the session. And any questions or queries you may have, feel free to ask them during the Q&A session at the end of the session. Thank you so much. So we have with us today Dr. Aksa Sheikh. Dr. Aksa Sheikh is a medical doctor and a community medicine specialist, India's first and only transgender woman to head a COVID vaccination center. Dr. Aksa Sheikh is, is the Associate Professor of Community Medicine at HIMSR, Jamia Hamdard, Delhi. He has been an investigator in COVID vaccine clinical trials of the Sputnik vaccine. He has also been a part of the WHO research of epidemiology of COVID-19 transmission amongst healthcare workers. She is working with Sangat on Transcare COVID-19 project to study the access of healthcare by the transgender community in the during pandemic. She is also part of a University of Chicago funded project on education, uniforming medical education to make it available to and trans affirmative. Direct Dr. Sheikh is an investigator in vaccine equity project by Vaccine Institute to study the access of COVID-19 vaccination by the transgender community. Born and brought up in Mumbai, Dr. Sheikh completed her education from St. Pius Medical College. She is a proud transgender woman and works on LGBTQIA plus rights of persons with disability and mental health. She has keen interest in medical ethics medical humanities, and medical education technology, and is a fellow of advanced course in medical education. She also serves as section editor of PLOS Global Public Health and is a reviewer with research in humanities in medical education. We also have here with us Sanapara today. We request you to address the gathering about the work that needs to be done in increasing the healthcare services and accessibility to everyone. Over to you.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, please do.
Just give me 1 second. Uh, is it? I'm trying to share it. It's not happening. Uh,
Are you able to share it right now?
no. It says that I'm an attendee, so I won't be able to share the content. Can you give me the
Could you
access?
please check right now? I made you a presenter.
Okay, sure. Mm, I don't think it's still happening.
Mm,
No, it's not happening. Content program. No. I selected it like.
for you to share the PPT with me so I can share it?
Oh, sure. I think if you can give me your email.
Right, it's Shivangi, SHIVANGI
Hmm.
.13245 @gmail.com.
I think maybe Aksa can, if Aksa wants to take over till then. I've sent the mail if you can check it.
Give me a minute, please.
Yeah.
Is it visible?
Uh, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Uh, all right. Shivangi, can I start?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And so sorry for this uh, not being able to share my screen thing. My name is Sana. Uh, Let me turn on my camera if that helps. My name is Sana, and I'm the research assistant on the Transcare and the Vaccine Equity, Transcare COVID-19 and the Vaccine Equity projects at Sangat. There's this presentation that I've made to sort of take you all through the kind of work that we are doing under the I Hear umbrella. If you could change the slide, please. So, just for an overview, IHEAR is Initiative for Health Equity, Advocacy and Research, under which we have two sub groups, which is IHEAR Vaccine Equity Project, which is funded by Sabin Vaccine Institute, and we have a Transcare umbrella in which we have Transcare COVID-19, which is funded by Thakur Foundation, and Transcare Medit, which is in collaboration with University of Chicago and Kasturba Medical College in Manipal. Also, we have a an initiative called Transcare Campus Ambassadors, and that sort of we'll talk about it as we move further. So, next slide, please. Shvangi, if you can change the slide, please.
I have changed it. Is it not showing?
No, it's not. Is it visible? Yeah, it is now. So, I hear vaccine equity is actually one of our latest projects, and it comes uh, from the community itself. Because while we were working on our Transcare projects, Transcare COVID-19 and Meded, which we'll talk about short in a few minutes, we did realize that vaccination, COVID-19 vaccination, are a huge part of inaccessible healthcare facilities. So right now in vaccine equity, the idea is to understand structural and historical discrimination and biases and how that has an impact on vaccine access and uptake in the marginalized communities, which we are working with our trans and disability communities. Shivangi, if you can just go to the fifth slide. This is the team, and to just sort of give you an overview, we have Aksa, of course. You all know Aksa, and we also have Dr. Satyendra, who has worked to develop similar competencies that we are working on in MedEd for the disability community and make the medical curriculum sensitive in collaboration with University of Chicago. The next, let's jump to the Transcare umbrella of projects then. As I mentioned, Transcare has three projects, which is Transcare COVID-19, which was one of our first projects, followed by Transcare MedEd, and then Transcare Campus Ambassadors. Transcare MedEd is sort of born out of Transcare COVID-19 in a way. Next slide, please, Shivangi. So the background for our Transcare projects is the understanding that transgender persons in India face a higher burden of disease, including the mental health issues. And Sangat, being a mental health organization, also focuses on that. We also realize that there are challenges in accessing healthcare and navigating the facilities. And according to the Trans Persons Protections of Rights Act 2019, there is a mandate to take measures to facilitate access to transgender persons in healthcare institutions and to review medical curriculum and research so as to address the issue of sensitivity, both of which we are targeting through our project. Next slide, please. The team behind the Transcare project is Dr. Aksa Sheikh, of course. We also have Dr. Hari Keetan, who is the project coordinator on board, and the work the Transcare work started, inspired from his work in his master's program in London School of Economics. And the project was developed over a period of months in collaboration with the transgender community in Bhopal, and to sort of understand in understanding the needs of the community and how we can align the project more with the community needs. Next slide, please. I think you can go to uh, so these are a few values that we abide by, which is equity, intersectionality. We prioritize lived experiences. We sort of ensure that partnership with the community is at the core of our projects, and to sort of work towards high quality academic scholarships and bring about real time changes. Next is our advisory board for the Transcare project. So we have tried to create an advisory board which includes members from the community. So we have more insight from the community as experts themselves. So we have L. Ramakrishnan, we have Samira Jagidar, Vajanti Vasanta Mugli, Sayantan and Rehan, all of whom are quite accomplished in their fields and also members from the community. So the first project here is Transcare COVID-19. If you could jump to the 12th slide, please. So the aim of Transcare COVID-19 is to document and experience the experiences of transgender persons in accessing and navigating healthcare in India, with special focus of healthcare access during the pandemic, and the impact on mental health, and to design and advocate for a curriculum aimed at building transgender competencies in the health professional education, which is our next project, MedEd. The team, of course, there's much overlap, so I think we can skip the team and jump to how we are going about the project. So it is the two main ideas, the two main approaches that we are taking in our Transcare COVID-19 project is community-based participatory research and intersectionality, both of which we'll talk about in a minute. We worked on the project with 22 in-depth interviews and 6 focus group discussions, which were mixed. Some of them were virtual, some of them were in person, and the analysis is to stage and it's still in progress. Next slide, please. So since I did mention that community-based participatory research and intersectionality are at the heart of our project, intersectionality is to sort of understand that each individual holds various identities, and not just the identity that we are focusing on, which might influence and impact their access to healthcare. Some of these identities are privileges, some of these identities are vulnerabilities, and intersectionality is ensuring that ensuring intersectionality in our research is to sort of make sure that various sections within each community are also covered to better address inequality and discrimination. Community-based participatory approach is ensuring that the research is sort of co-led by the community and not imposed on them. Individual experiences are given the primary spot, and they are the basis for the research and the expertise. Can you change the slide, please? So a few ways in which we have sort of tried to ensure community workshops, community-based participatory research is community workshops, wherein we sit in collaboration with the members of the community, open it up, and then they can we present what our research looks like and ask for their inputs and how we can make it better, what are the things that we should and shouldn't do, etc. And then we incorporated throughout our research process. We have planned 4 such community workshops, out of which 3 have already happened. The 4th one will happen after the analysis. Another thing, how we have, if you could change the slide, please. Another way in which we ensure community participation is through capacity building trainings. Capacity building trainings are led by Dr. Aksa, and they are to sort of ensure that the research, primarily the research field, however, other areas also, people understand trans-sensitive research to sort of understand, and in media also, to how to interview in a trans-sensitive way, which is something that is not often talked about. So, and the second workshop was about terminologies across the LGBTQIA spectrum. Next slide, please. I think we can skip this. The overview of the findings, if I were to tell you in a very brief manner, is that we are trying to understand barriers to healthcare, under which we have come across various uh, ways in which the access to healthcare for the people in the community is hindered. How healthcare professionals and doctors sort of play a role in a positive as well as a negative sense in their access. How the hindered access has an impact on the individual, the intersectionality of the individuals approaching the healthcare, and how different identities in terms of religion, caste, class, education, migration, language, etc., has an impact on the access to healthcare. We are also focusing on mental health. So this has the access to mental health care as well as the impact that negative experiences in healthcare have an impact on mental health. And lastly, the COVID-19 access to healthcare and how they have navigated it, which sort of covers getting vaccination, information and misinformation around COVID, and how they navigated in event that they did get the infection. The next project that sort of stems from COVID-19 is Transcare MedEd, which is in collaboration with KMC Manipal and University of Chicago. The idea is to create a set of competencies which are trans-affirmative for the undergraduate medical students, and to highlight the best practices globally in the shared decision making. So in under this, we have the team from U Chicago as well as the team from India. Uh, I think there's an overlap in the teams also. Maybe I'll just quickly run through the members of the team. Dr. Anand Bhan is our project investigator, primary investigator in all of our projects. Dr. Aksha Sheikh and Dr. Satyendra Singh are also collaborators in all of the projects that we have. Dr. Khan Amir Maroof was also a part of the competencies developed by in a part of the team that developed the disability competencies with U Chicago. Dr. Kirtana Pai is from KMC Manipal, which is a partner in this project. Deepak Tugnawat is a member at Sangat, director of projects, and Dr. Hari Kirtan again is project coordinator for all the projects that we are talking about here. Um, and for this project, we have Gadha as the project assistant. Other than that, there's the U Chicago team. I think we can jump to 23rd slide. The idea, the work we do here, the work we do here is what we're doing primarily is to sort of organize workshops in 3 sites, which is Bhopal, Delhi, and Manipal, wherein we have workshops with four groups of stakeholders. Um, and then we review the competencies, we develop them based on the workshop that we have had. The stakeholders include persons from the community, medical practitioners who have worked with the community, medical educators, as well as trans students who are trans medical students. And the final idea is for a dissemination through a national conference. Um, I think we can, these are, I think the following are just a few photos, which is this one is when Dr. Satyendra did work on the competencies for the disability. The next is a few pictures from our Delhi workshop when we had one there. The Manipal workshop is also complete. We also the picture the image that you can see in both these pictures was a token that was given to all the participants and the professionals, including the medical professionals, and they did put it up in their offices, which to sort of show solidarity as well as to highlight that this is a queer affirmative space. So this creates an impact. Next thing that we have is Transcare Campus Ambassadors. This is something that the team started from themselves. and it is of course led by Dr. Aksa, and we have created a network of individuals across campuses, people from the community who are allies to make sure that we are working with people in the colleges to create safe spaces, trans affirmative, trans to create transformative spaces in campuses. The next thing is something that we have recently developed, the Transcare team. If you could jump to please 29th slide. Yeah, so it's a queer sensitivity booklet called Colors Amongst Us, and it was aimed to specifically sensitize healthcare professionals. This was also released at our latest Transcare Merit workshop at Kasturba Medical College, Manipal. And you can, if you want, you can definitely access it on our website, sangat.in/transcare. And if you can, please make sure that you do share it with your colleagues and everybody. And Sangat also has an anti-discrimination and equal opportunity policy for transgender and intersex persons. So this booklet is in line with that. That's it. Thank you so much. There's our website. You can reach us out for any queries or questions at transcare.in at sangat.in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Avanti.
Uh, Good evening, Dr. Sheikh. We would like to ask you a few questions. So, first of all, thank you for taking out time from your hectic schedule for being with us here today. Um, how are you doing, Dr. Sheikh? Ma'am,
Yeah. Yeah. Am I audible?
yeah,
Yeah. If I caught your name correctly, it's Avanti.
yes.
Hi, Avanti. It's really a pleasure to be, here with all of you and talking about a very important issue. So thank you for this opportunity, and I'm doing good.
Nice to know. So we wanted to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Um, would you could you tell us a little about yourself and your story?
1 second. Let me just adjust my camera. Yeah. So it's very difficult to talk about one story, and I really don't know from where to start. But let me start by introducing myself. So I'm Dr. Aksar Sheikh. I work as the Associate Professor of Community Medicine at Hamdard Institute of Medical Sciences and Research. I also work here as the nodal officer of the COVID Vaccination Center and a researcher. And I teach medical students, public health students, PhD students, and all. Um, in addition to that, of course, a very important part of my identity is that of a transgender woman. And I was born and brought up in Mumbai, where I completed my schooling, my undergraduate medical education, my postgraduate medical education before I finally came to Delhi around 11 years back. And um, that's how my journey towards transition also started in the city of Delhi. So I transitioned around 4 years back, um, when I was at the age of 34. And it's really a story and to how it took me so long to take this decision and to embark on this journey of one's identity. So my understanding of my gender became clear to me when I was around 20 years of age, when I was in the medical college and I took consultation from the mental health care professionals. And it became clear to me that I identified as a transgender person, as a transgender woman. Um, but then it's very difficult in our society, for parents and family members to really accept your identity, or to kind of allow you, to transition into another gender, socially, legally, medically, surgically. And the same thing was there. There was a lot of resistance from the family. So it was difficult. And that's why I had to migrate from Mumbai to Delhi to start this journey on my own. Now, while I was independent to make my decisions in Delhi, where I was staying separately, I was financially independent. But then you have those bondages of your family, emotional bonds, which don't really allow you to live your life on your own. You're always like, oh, my parents didn't agree, or my brother didn't agree, or so on. And unfortunately, that led me to delay this decision and the action, and that affected my mental health really badly. Um, I was at a point where I was having suicidal ideation, and that was the time when I finally decided that it's enough, and I want to live as who I identify as. And therefore, 4 years back, I started on this journey, and here I am today, speaking to you about it.
Very inspiring, honestly. Um, so, like, what would you say are the most, what are the challenges that the community faces in terms of healthcare?
See, when it comes to health, I mean, we have to understand that all Indians have issues with health access. I mean, irrespective of whether you are a cisgender person or a transgender person, there are issues with health access. And it becomes even more challenging for transgender persons. And as Sana was mentioning in the background of the project, we have to stop looking at transgender persons in silos of only their gender identity. There is intersectionality. A transgender woman and a transgender man, their level of access and their challenges and their levels of discrimination are different. Trans person who is Dalit as compared to trans person who comes from the privileged castes, there is a difference in access. There are religious factors, there are socioeconomic factors, there are factors of ability, there are factors of age, and so on. So, when it comes to Indian trans persons, they carry all these multiple minority stresses with them, and that affects their access to healthcare. Um, Unfortunately, it took us nearly 7 decades to recognize trans people as a valid gender identity. It was only when the NALSA judgment came. And it's only in 2019 that we had a legislation come up for this with the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act coming. So it has been very less, very late, and very little. Uh, Nonetheless, the pandemic has taught that the challenges of health are very real, and these are important issues for anyone. It's a matter of survival. And that is why we also at Sangat embarked on this journey of researching on the access issues that the trans community has, especially during the pandemic times when the vulnerabilities are more exposed, when discrimination and stigma increases manyfold. So it's been difficult, and there are issues with the legal documents. Many of the trans people do not have the documents on their name. There are issues with the infrastructure problems at the healthcare provision, like there are no separate queues. You have male and female queue. You do not have on the forms gender or option for filling the third gender, for example. You do not have doctors who are trained to be providing services to intersex or transgender persons. You do not have the attitude, so still the trans bodies or intersex bodies are a mystery to the doctors, and there has been a very painful history, if I may say so, of how the doctors have experimented on intersex and trans bodies, how um, people with um, varying sexual orientations and gender identities have been discriminated against, and how things like conversion therapy, aversion therapy, shock therapy, and such other nonsensical corrective therapies have been used by psychiatrists and mental health care professionals to kind of cure homosexuality or transness from the people. So there is a lot of baggage that the medical professionals are carrying vis-a-vis their relationship to transgender healthcare. Things have to progress, things have to change, and we'll have to bring that change, and we are working towards that.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights on healthcare. Um, do you think the media representation that the transgender community gets is enough? Like, any ways it can be improved?
When it comes to media representation, I mean, that's how most of the people probably know about the queer community. So a lot of us have seen these comic characters in our films or web series or dramas, um, where the queer persons were portrayed as comic caricatures or as criminals. Trans persons have been often shown as only sex workers or people who abducted kids, or who were having perversions of some kind. And somehow this is how the image builds up. So I remember that in my childhood, my exposure to queer persons and trans persons were two. One was by looking at the hijra community around us, and second was through the media in terms of television, in terms of films, as to how the feminine men were portrayed as. And now it's become fashionable, that you add some kind of a trans character or a gay character or lesbian character to your web series, to your movies, and to all those things. But then it's very important to understand how these people are being portrayed. While there have been some stories and some characters which have been told with a lot of sensibility and which have furthered the cause of improving the portrayal of the queer lives, but when it comes to majority of the cinema and majority of the mainstream cinema, unfortunately still there's a lot of sensationalization which has been attached to trans stories. If I can talk about recent movies like Lakshmi Bomb, or web series like Pati Patni or Panga, they've all shown trans people as ghosts or some kind of scary characters or people who cheat on men. And uh, trans people have been reduced to their bodies. So I mean, if you look at Sacred Games, you had this character of Kaku, and again she was being reduced to her body. So it's very important that the when it comes to the trans stories on screen, these involve trans people. I mean, in terms of writing, in terms of portraying these characters, the trans actors should be portraying these roles rather than cisgender actors. And in terms of how these have been directed, we have often found that women directors have done a better role in portraying trans characters as compared to cis het men. So we need that kind of sensitivity. We need those responsibility on behalf of the producers of the cinema, because their work impacts young minds, and that's how your idea of who a trans person is, maybe because you watched a certain series or a movie.
Yeah, the representation in movies has been a little questionable, I'd say. Uh, so, being the first and only transgender person to be heading a COVID vaccination center, it certainly is very inspiring. So, would you like to share how you feel about that?
So in January 2021, when we launched the nationwide vaccination, and I became the first trans person not just to get the vaccine, but also to start giving the vaccine as the nodal office of a center. I mean, it was an opportunity that I really looked forward to, because it meant interacting with hundreds of people every day, people, who have often seen a trans person only as begging on the streets or dancing in marriages, or on the birth of children. And for them to see a trans doctor and a trans doctor at work and providing COVID vaccination or services, that would have a positive impact on how they look at trans people. So for me, this was a lot of responsibility and a lot of privilege also, in the sense that there are not many trans doctors. We are probably some 15, 16 trans doctors in entire India, and it carries a lot of responsibility on us on how we portray our lives, because that's how the narrative around the trans lives is going to be focused on. So I'm really grateful that I got this opportunity, and it's been 11 months down the line, and we are still providing vaccination to hundreds of people through our vaccination center. So it really feels good that it's an opportunity to do positive portrayal on trans lives.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Does the government have any schemes to make lives easier, like for the members of the community, or like anything you'd like to, like the government to do to improve it?
Well, as I mentioned, so around 2 years back, the central government came out with the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act, followed by the rules. Then there was formation of the National Transgender Council, and they have come up with certain schemes like creating the shelter homes called Garima Grace. Some of the state governments have made transgender welfare boards and came out with schemes like pensions for trans persons, or providing a small aid for the trans persons who want to undergo sex reassignment surgery. But I think what is needed is a very big attitudinal shift and a very big change in how the trans welfare is looked at. We have to stop looking at it from a charity lens, as if the government is doing some kind of a charity by giving ration, food, or a shelter home to trans persons. We need to remember that trans persons are everywhere, and we need reforms everywhere, right from schools, colleges, office spaces, reservation in education and government services, healthcare provisions for wards, gender affirmation services, COVID vaccination, COVID treatment. So, whenever a new scheme comes, whenever you are making a new legislation or program, the government needs to ask, is this being right or just for the trans people? Just to give you an example, so recently the Parliament passed a bill, the Lok Sabha passed a bill on assistive reproductive technologies, or ART bill. And this bill, which talks about in vitro fertilization and so on, excludes people who are not married, people who are single men, people who are queer persons, as if saying that queer persons do not have a right to conceive or to enjoy parenthood. So until and unless, in every aspect of life, in every aspect of life as a citizen of this country and an equal citizen of this country, the rights of the trans persons are safeguarded, then these small measures are only going to be charity. And we do not want charity. We want our rights as equal citizens of this country. So there's a lot to do. And I think the government needs to hear the voices of the trans people rather than thinking that they know what the trans people need. So we need more transgender welfare boards which have members from the trans community. We need more fora where trans people are able to voice out what are their concerns, what are their needs, what they want from the government to do, and then the budgetary allocation and action needs to follow on that.
So, what do you think would be roles of students? For spreading awareness regarding transgender community and in general, and about transgender healthcare particularly.
If I heard it correctly, did you ask role of students?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I think, when it comes to educational spaces, these are the spaces where a lot of trans persons for the first time discover their gender identity when they are in school, when they are in college. These are the spaces also where most of them face non acceptance, bullying, harassment, even sexual abuse. These are the places where they are forced into the binaries of male and female. When they see that you have male toilets and female toilets, you have boys common room, girls common room, boys hostels, girls hostel, and they feel left out. They feel they do not have a safe space. These are the places where a lot of stigma and discrimination happens. And therefore, these are the spaces where reforms need to happen. We need policies in all the educational institutes, right from playgroups, nurseries, schools to higher educational institutes, guaranteeing that there is going to be a stigma free environment where a transgender child or youth can learn and live their life. We need to ensure that when a transgender child enters a school or a college, their peers and their teachers are trans affirmative, they're trans positive, that they get that acceptance. And it requires a lot of structural reforms. It requires reforms, for example, in our education, it requires reforms in teacher training, it requires legal reforms. No, just to give an example, a trans person today faces so many issues because their degrees were issued in the old name and gender, and there's no way they can get it changed unless they approach a court and get that changed. So these are small things which can be improved. Why can't we have unigender or unisex uniforms? Why do we need to have a female uniform or a male uniform? Why can't teachers be trained? We recently had a manual released by NCERT for teachers training on transgender sensitivity, which had to be taken down because there was opposition from some of the groups. So it's important that until unless the society becomes accepting of the trans peoples, and the schools and colleges are important parts of those societies, the trans youth and the trans children will not find it easy physically or mentally. Trans youth faces so much of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, even suicidal attempts. And these rates are sometimes 40 times higher as compared to cis people. And what we've seen is that these rates go down when the parents are accepting of them, when the peers and teachers are accepting of them. So you need to understand that these are not just cosmetic changes. These are matter of life and death for a trans child, and therefore there needs to be some kind of an urgency in doing this so that the next generation does not have to go through the transphobia that the past generations had to go through.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So, if any of the audience wants to ask any questions, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Very grateful to you for doing this session for us. I work in a corporate and I'm in the space of diversity and inclusion. And thank you for sharing, Aksa, what you have shared. Uh, my one question will be, from the corporate side, what is it that we can do, to become more inclusive in the society? And I think we have a huge role to play. We have a huge role to influence. What is it that one thing or two things that you would recommend corporates should start doing?
I think all the corporates need to follow the law of the land. And when I say that, they need to refer to the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act, which says that all the establishments will have a policy talking about safeguarding the rights of the persons, and they will appoint a complaints officer so that the trans
Yeah.
persons who have a complaints. So I think first and foremost is that in letter they need to follow this by having a policy which is there on their website. and appointing a complaints officer and their details being provided publicly. Sangat, for example, has a wonderful policy which can be looked into and which can be adapted and adopted by other institutes. Second is, to employ trans people. And when I say employ trans people, a lot of corporates, do not understand that um, employing them would need providing a lot of support. No, we say when we talk to corporates, they say, "Oh, we are not discriminating. Our doors are open to all the trans people, and we'll be happy to hire a trans people." But where are trans applicants? Now we need to understand that until and unless a trans child gets a proper school education and then a higher education and then a stigma-free environment to work, they are going to be invisible. So the corporates have a responsibility to support the schools and colleges to become trans affirmative, and then to provide some kind of an affirmative action, like saying that this job is going to be reserved for trans persons until unless we find someone. The corporates and the private entities and establishments have that right available to them, that they can make a job reserved for a trans person or for a queer person. So we need to go beyond the optics of Pride Month, beyond the optics of pink washing, and really do changes for the trans people, and making sure that our environments and our workplaces are trans affirmative. A simple thing for all the corporates to ask is, where do you have the unigender toilet?
Yes.
Many, yeah. So these are small things by which it can be started. And of course, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do.
Thank you so much. And my last question would be, uh, do we have a community where we can find people in the STEM, people in science and technology for trans people? Do we have a community?
Yeah, so you can check the website of lifeofscience.com, and also the Women in Science. And they talk about trans and gender non-binary persons in STEM, and they also celebrate the lives of trans persons in STEM. So, for example, they come out with a calendar every year which features trans, queer, and non-binary persons who have been doing great work in STEM. So, do check out their website. It's Life of Science. On Twitter, they go by the handle Lab Hopping.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Shivangi. I'd
Hi,
like to ask you a
Shivangi. Nice to see
question.
you.
Thank you. Nice to see you too. Thank you so much for being here, first of all.
My pleasure.
I'd like to ask, so regarding the COVID vaccine, a lot of women have reported, changes in their menstrual cycle post taking the vaccine. And we know a lot of transgender members are actually under hormone replacement therapy, right, when they're transitioning. So do you think this could have any long-term implications?
Yeah, so answering your first question, regarding the menstrual irregularities which have been reported post-vaccination in women, this was something which was not scientifically documented when the vaccination was launched. When it comes to women's lives, when it comes to menstruation, this is something which is often not talked of, or which is often ignored even by the scientists and researchers, as something which is not important, which does not bother. I was just reading this article today, which says that when it comes to uh, angina or cardiac arrest in women, the symptoms of chest pain is often ignored, one by the women themselves and second by the clinician. So a woman with chest pain and having angina or cardiac arrest is less likely to be diagnosed as compared to a man. So a man's symptoms are likely to be more reported and more taken more seriously as compared to a woman's symptoms, especially when it comes to pain. So yes, I mean, this was something which we observed a few months down the line after a lot of women started taking vaccination, especially from the general population. and this is something that definitely needs more research and looking into how the vaccination effect. Currently I do not know of many studies which are going on this topic. Probably it's not an area of interest for many of the vaccine producers or even educational institutes to fund these studies, but then you have correctly highlighted that this is one area that needs looking into. Second is when it comes to trans persons who are on hormone replacement therapy. Um, when it comes to clinical trials, which are done before a vaccine is launched, these clinical trials do not include certain vulnerable and protected populations like pregnant persons, lactating persons, children, and also transgender persons. So when the vaccines were tested before launching them, they were not tested on transgender persons, and hence we do not know how they react in trans bodies. But then many of the trans people later on have taken the vaccination and they were on hormone replacement therapy, and we have not gotten any reports of more thrombosis or clotting or deranged vascular events in them. So the anecdotal evidence suggests that it is safe for trans persons on hormone replacement therapy or even cisgender women on hormone replacement therapy to take the vaccine. And secondly, when it comes to risk benefit analysis, naturally the benefit is much more. Sorry.
Right, right. And how would you say the mental health has been affected by the pandemic? And are there any resources exclusively for the members of the community?
Unfortunately, mental health is a privilege in this nation, and even cisgender and cishet men also do not have enough services, which is the most privileged group
Right.
when it comes to the mental health. So you can only understand when it comes to mental health of women or mental health of queer or trans folks. So, I mean, the pandemic has been a difficult time for the mental health for all of us, but then it's not something which has affected everyone equally. People with multiple marginalizations and multiple minority stresses have been affected more by this as compared to people, who are more privileged in many of the other factors. But definitely, the trans community has suffered a lot when it comes to mental health, and this can be documented through the number of calls to the helplines that have shot many times. So there were many trans people who were forced to go back to their natal families to stay with them during the lockdown, and during that stay, they have faced numerous forms of abuses: physical, mental, emotional, even sexual abuse. Some of them were forced into marriages. Or into some kind of aversion or conversion therapy. Many of them had their gender affirmation process like hormone replacement therapy or laser therapy stopped, and that led to a lot of gender dysphoria. So all these things, have really accumulated and caused more mental stress. In addition, we need to also look beyond, bodies and sex and organs and talk about, for example, jobs. When it comes to losing jobs, we know that women have lost more jobs in the pandemic as compared to men. We know that trans and queer folks, the employers had gotten an opportunity to fire them and not being questioned for it, because everyone was getting fired during the pandemic. So you had the weaker members of the society really lost, in this process. So we also need to talk about the mental stress arising out of unemployment, mental stress arising because these trans students are not able to go to their colleges or to their hostels, which were safe places for them, and are forced to stay with their natal families. So there are multiple factors and intersectionalities that we really need to look into.
Right. And finally, just one last question. A lot of us who are watching this talk right now are medical students, and as of now, our curriculum does not have anything related to, the LGBTQ, right? And by the time that is introduced in the curriculum, most of us will be practicing professionals. So, what do you think can be done by us right now to ensure that the healthcare that we provide is all inclusive?
Um, when it comes to medical education, I mean, that is something that we have been working on. And there was recently an advisory issued by the National Medical Commission, which said that the textbooks should not have content which is derogatory to the queer community or derogatory against certain sections of the society. But the NMC has put the onus on authors, on the medical colleges, and on the faculty members. It has not taken any responsibility for itself, though they are the regulators of medical education in the country. So currently we have a situation where the medical textbooks not just lack in providing trans affirmative education, but actually have transphobic content in them.
Right.
We have teachers who have themselves been taught in a very transphobic curriculum, and we expect them to suddenly become trans affirmative and teach a generation which is completely different from them. We expect that the students will learn about transness and queerness, though it will never be assessed in their exams. There's not going to be an MCQ in the NEET, or there's not going to be a question in your exams. And we know what is not assessed is not really studied. So there is a huge responsibility on NMC to ensure that this becomes a part of the curriculum. And there are a lot of models available from many of the other countries where there are competencies in the medical education dealing with the, for example, anti-racism, dealing with women's rights, dealing with rights of the queer and the trans folks. So those need to be adapted. And secondly, I always say that it need not be a top-down approach. It can also be a bottoms-up approach. Today's medical students are quite woke. They are quite understanding. They know about transness and queerness more than their parents or their teachers. There are so many great channels, for example, on various social media, which provide information on these issues. The medical students need to take it up on their own to kind of self-educate them on these issues, because tomorrow when you become doctors, you are going to get a trans patient, you are going to get a queer patient, and irrespective of whether you were taught about it or not in the medical school, you as a professional will owe this responsibility to them to offer them the correct care with empathy. So I think rather than waiting for NMC to change or medical colleges to change, really the medical students need to take it upon themselves, to kind of self-educate. And trust me, there are enough resources available everywhere, and the resources will come and the speakers will come once the student is ready.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks.
Does
Hi.
anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Hi. Um, so, first of all, I love the session. Secondly, there's this, especially in India, there's this thing where you can only identify as trans on paper if you have transitioned. But a lot of trans people, A, haven't transitioned yet because of a lack of resources, and B, some trans people do not transition just because they don't want to. For example, I am trans and I have no plans of transitioning just because I don't want to. But that means that I would not be recognized as trans in most places because being recognized as trans requires medical proof. So, is there anything being done to like erase that policy?
Can I have your name?
Jaini.
Jay?
Jayani.
Jane. Okay. So first of all, thank you for sharing about yourself and asking this very important question. So when I think this is a point that we have been really fighting hard for. So when it comes to the Trans Care Act, it says that if your sex assigned at birth was, let's say, male or female, and you want to have another sex assigned to you legally, then first you need to get a transgender identity card, which is on self attestation as an affidavit that you need to submit to the district magistrate. Uh, Along with that affidavit, you do not need to produce any medical documents, any letter of support from a mental health care professional, or any other thing. It's just you saying that I identify as a transgender person and I want a transgender identity card, and you should be issued that. The process, in fact, is online now. There is MOSJE, that is Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment's website, on which this can be done, and you can upload the PDF of the affidavit and get the card. When it comes to changing your sex from, let's say, female, which was assigned to you at birth, into male or vice versa, then some kind of a surgical procedure has to be undergone. And this is the contentious issue that we have been fighting for against. Um, but having said that, just wanted to clarify this, that if you want to identify as a transgender person, then you do not require any form of transition or any form of document, only an affidavit which is self-attested is sufficient. But if you want to change from male to female or from female to male, then some kind of surgical procedure is required. Now, that surgical procedure need not be a genital reconstruction surgery. For example, in case of a lot of trans men, they do not go undergo what is called as a bottom surgery, but only undergo a chest reconstruction or a top surgery, and that should be sufficient to get them that identity card. So that's the legal provision. And thank you for letting a lot of audience know that many of the trans people do not have the same set of gender dysphoria. Not all trans people want to undergo transition surgery surgically, and that need not be suggested to them. And not all trans folks are into the binaries. You may be a gender non-binary or non-congruent person, and that's completely part of your gender identity. So thank you for bringing that point.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any more questions, or could we please conclude the session?
I had a question. Ma'am, it was an amazing session. Thank you for that. I am Vishnu Priya. I am right now doing my internship from NRS. So I have met patients who fear to divulge that they are transgender, and it becomes very difficult for us to give them proper treatment or to instinctively deal with them. So how do we go about with that? How do we empathetically talk to them or make them comfortable and go forward with that?
No, we need to understand that a lot of trans people have had negative experiences or bad experiences with their past interactions with the healthcare systems and healthcare workers, and therefore trusting a new healthcare worker takes time.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of trans people, in fact, go to the healthcare workers which have been recommended by some other trans person only. So, the onus is more on the healthcare workers, on the various service providers to become trans friendly and trans affirmative. Be patient, and once your this particular trans person has had a positive experience, by word of mouth you'll see that you'll be added to the list of the trans affirmative healthcare providers. What's important is to give them that confidence, one, that their confidentiality and privacy is being secured. Secondly, that there's going to be a non-judgmental attitude, that we are not going to judge them for who they are and how they dress up or how they talk or any other choices that they may have. We need to provide them a safe space where they can share about their lives, where they can talk about even abuse that they may have faced. We need to provide competent care. Sometimes only being good and courteous does not help, especially when it comes to healthcare. You also need to provide skilled healthcare to people that they need, and for that a lot of healthcare workers need to self-educate themselves as to what are really the specific needs of the transgender persons and patients and how you can provide them. So with those few points, I think over a period of time, you will see how they'll gain confidence in you and they'll trust you and they'll refer more trans folks to you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. But the thing is, like in government colleges, we sit in the OPDs more. So we get very less time to interact with the patients to even bring them in our confidence. Like I faced this patient who was suffering from UTI. I got just 5 minutes with the person, but in those few minutes, I couldn't convey myself, or I couldn't bring her or him to my them to my confidence. So that becomes very difficult, and how to deal with that in that short span of time.
I mean, thanks that you have been so, concerned and considerate about it. So, one thing that we have seen work is that one is to schedule a next or follow-up visit with them, and then to ask them to come at a time when you have a little less crowd in the OPD, like when the OPD is exactly starting. So, if they could be your first patient or they could be your last patient, then you have more time and more privacy to address them. Second is if you can provide them your contact details and ask them to give you a WhatsApp call and a WhatsApp consultation or something of that sort, which they can do from their home at your convenient time. So then you are able to get more time for yourself to convince them and also ensure that there is confidentiality and privacy, because I've also studied from government setup and I know that you have one patient and then many other patients surrounding them and there's actually no privacy available. So in the pandemic times have really made online consultation, teleconsultation feasible, and a lot of people have done that. So that could be one tool that you can employ with certain patients to give them that privacy and time.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. This helps a lot.
Hello.
Yes.
Um, so, Dr. Sheikh, would you like to give any message to the audience for today? Any takeaway message?
Well, my takeaway message will be that first of all, congratulations on being here and listening. I mean, that's the first step towards making yourself more aware on trans issues. The certain actions that you can do in your life is one, to know a trans person personally. Make a trans friend on maybe Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, on whatever social media you are. Get to know about their lives, befriend them, talk to them, maybe meet them in person, and question your own stigmas, question your own ideas, question your own biases, implicit biases. If you can do that and then also replicate that for other forms of stigmas and biases that we have, for example, people with disability, for women, for other folks, then I think we can overall become a better person and the society can become a better place for everyone. Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much for taking out time from your schedule today and being here with all of us. And I'm sure it was a great experience for all of us. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Same here, same here. Thank you so much for this
Thank
opportunity.
you. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks. Bye.
Bye
thank you
bye.
so much.
You all may leave right now. Thank you.